Good morning, everybody. I'm Nathan Friedman, CEO of HemaSense. We are an early-stage medical device company based out of Arizona, and we have developed a patient monitoring device that is a wearable and is used after catheter-based surgeries to give early detection and alert for access site bleeding complications. This is a huge market and a huge unmet need across multiple endovascular applications. It's not device-specific. And we've developed a unique solution that's really based on existing technologies that have been customized for this particular application. This has really given us a pathway to really improving patient outcomes, but also a very compelling health economics case for hospital adoption of this product. We're currently raising a pre-seed round of about $450,000 and anticipating a seed round later this year. So let's talk a little bit about the procedures that we really feel would benefit the most from this. So I'll start off by saying my background is I spent 19 years at W.L. Gore & Associates doing development work from ideation all the way through commercialization for many of the products that you see up on the screen here. And I want to be clear that this is not just arterial access that has this problem. We're seeing a huge growth in venous access in these products that are these really nice structural heart products, and these are life-saving devices. But there is this cloud over these 2 million procedures that happen every year of a really high rate of bleeding complications. We're talking almost 1 in 10 patients who undergo one of these procedures will have a major bleeding complication that results in hematomas, it results in loss of blood pressure in some cases, and massive bruising that can go all the way down the patient's leg. They're incredibly painful and they're incredibly costly for the hospitals. There was a recent paper that showed that it's almost $19,000 worth of cost directly to the hospital when one of these bleeding complications occurs. So the current standard of care here is that a nurse is monitoring these patients. They're looking at the access site on a regular interval. And so they're relying on these nurses, who have a lot of other tasks as well, to visually see a change at the access site. Well, there's a lot of bruising there already. We have obese patients, we have clotting disorders. There's a whole host of different reasons why you may miss that. And if you miss it, you now are going down this pathway and this cascade of treatments that may involve surgery, it may involve blood transfusions, and it can be very, very costly and burdensome. So what we do is we use bioimpedance technology, which means we are measuring the resistance of the tissue underneath this wearable patch. Blood is very conductive. It's an order of magnitude more conductive than the surrounding fat and subcutaneous tissue, so we can detect very small amounts of blood, down to about 5 cc's at 7 centimeters below the surface of the skin, so we can cover a whole range of patients. We filed our foundational IP, and an initial search hasn't turned up any red flags for freedom to operate at this point. I want you to keep in mind that what we're trying to do here is detect early for simpler and earlier treatments so that we can improve outcomes and get these patients back to their daily lives. There's really 3 areas that we add value here. The first and foremost is patient outcomes. There's a higher rate of morbidity and mortality associated with these bleeding complications, and there's a huge decrease in patient satisfaction, which is increasingly becoming a very important metric for these hospitals. Obviously, we are reducing recovery cost. These patients or these procedures are typically reimbursed based on a DRG code, which means that any increase in the cost of the procedure comes directly out of the hospital's profit margin. And in many cases, if these patients stay an extra day in the hospital past the typical 24-hour discharge time, that case loses money. So that is something that these hospitals are very motivated to take care of. Even more so than this recovery cost, though, is there is a push to get to even earlier discharge. There are hospitals that are experimenting with same-day discharge for TAVR cases right now, and this would be a huge benefit to them because we can now tell you within hours after a procedure that you can discharge this patient and not worry about them having a complicated bleeding event when they go home. So we can really open up a hospital bed turnover for these current procedures that increases the throughput of them at these hospitals. So there's one device on the market right now called the Serenus Earlybird. And you can see behind me in this picture that this is actually a sheath-based device. They require an implant that goes in the vein next to the artery that's being treated to stay in during recovery. As you can imagine, this is not really ideal, so they have not seen a lot of market traction. But what is important about what they've done is they were a 510(k) de novo with no clinical trial, and we can use them as a predicate now. And so that is our pathway. So we're able to get to market without a clinical trial in this application. They're seeing some traction in PVAD and actually recently got acquired by J&J for an undisclosed amount. So there is a need in this space. So where we're at right now is we've finished our technology development. We self-funded that from our team, and we are moving into product feasibility. We have working product prototypes right now, and our intention is to get to an initial animal study to prove that this works later this summer. After that, we're going to be moving very quickly through our design control process. We know what that pathway looks like. Our team has done this before, and we are anticipating getting to an FDA submission in late 2026. And at that point, we will likely be on the market, but initiating a post-market study to prove out our economic value. This post-market study is very important because we won't have to do the clinical trial during our actual approval, but this will gain us the data we need in order to get into these hospitals and show them true economic benefit and true value to their patients based on this device. These will also transition into our initial customers. After this post-market study at these high-volume centers, they will immediately transition to our initial customer base, and we'll be able to start presenting data that will allow us to grow. If we look at our overall market size, we are applicable to every single femoral access procedure that's being done out there. In the small bore procedures, it's a little bit lower rate, but there has been a lot of desire to do this in all procedures because there is still a problem there. In the large bore procedures, which is about 2.6 million a year, it's about a $2.2 billion market with our anticipated ASP of somewhere between $800 and $1,000 for each of these devices. I do want to point out this is a razor and blade or recurring revenue model, meaning that we have a base station that these communicate to. Those will be sold as a part of the setup cost for a hospital, but not at a huge profit margin. But the real profit is this high margin disposable that we are going to sell for every patient that comes out of that catheter lab with one of these procedures. So what we know as well is that we are not really in a place where scaling something like this, that it's a high volume device, is going to be easy. But there are people out there who can do this and are doing this already. And so we are looking at our exit strategy being an acquisition. There's two groups of companies that are going to be interested in this technology. The first is the actual device companies. We've seen time and time again that they are willing to acquire and bring technologies and products into house that increase the efficacy of their devices and increase the patient outcomes based on their procedures. And they are absolutely targeting us as well. We also are applicable to patient monitoring companies. These are the companies that are already in the recovery room. They already have these pulse ox monitors, these cardiac monitors, these blood pressure monitors. They have a presence, they have the distribution network, they have the relationships, and this is a very, very nice product for them to get recurring revenue in an account that they already have. We have a great team. We have a very lean team. I gave you a little bit of my background. I also exited a company in the beverage space about 2 years ago while I was simultaneously working at Gore. Our CTO, Ben Trapp, has been a collaborator of mine for almost 20 years. We have worked together on all of these different devices. He is currently doing a lot of contract work for other startups as well and has helped bring several devices to market after he left Gore. Dr. Anita Asgar, who is currently the chief of cardiology at Northwestern Medicine, was actually the original ideator and inspiration for this device. We sat down with her for dinner one night and she said, "This is the problem you need to work on. This literally keeps me up at night because I get phone calls in the middle of the night that I need to come in and fix a bleeding complication from a patient." So she was really the one who gave us this clinical problem, and we went out and found a solution for it. Cody Hartman is one of our co-founders. He is now at Edwards. He has taken a job there, so he is on as an advisory role. So where we're at from funding, I mentioned that we are finishing up a pre-seed round right now. We're about $100,000 into this raise. If anybody is interested in talking to us about what the terms are on that, I'd be happy to chat with you about it. This is really to get us through that animal study and into our first phase of product development and design control setup. After that animal study, we will be looking to raise a seed round, likely in the $3 to $4 million range, and this will actually get us all the way through our FDA submission because we don't have a clinical trial that needs to happen there. And then at that point, we'll assess where we're at, and we will likely be looking for a small round to fund this post-market study. So if anybody is interested in chatting with me about this opportunity, either from the funding standpoint or from the technology or just to learn a little bit more about it, I'm happy to stick around after, and I'll be around at the conference all day as well. So I thank you all for your time, and I hope to speak with you about HemaSense.